Shalom Aleichem. Today we like to learn the halachot of Hatarat Nedarim. Many people do Hatarat Nedarim 40 days before Rosh Hashanah and 40 days before Yom Kippur. It's definitely done before Rosh Hashanah and before Yom Kippur, but some even go to the extent to do it with 40 days beforehand, just because the Zohar in Parashat Pikudei said that Mishen Itchayev Nezifa or Nidui and Filato Nishmat 40 Yom. 40 days his prayer is not heard if he was Mitchayev to Shamayim for certain things, certain sins that he committed, and therefore because of that they try to make that Hatarat Nedarim. Those Hatarat Nedarim are only possible for the neder, for a vow that a person doesn't remember that he did. If he remembered he verbally vowed something, then he has to go in front of 3 people. One of them should be at least the rabbi or somebody who's knowledgeable, that he would know how to find an opening, a petach, to let go of his vow, of his neder. Otherwise, for something that he doesn't remember, or for those things that he made, a good deed that he made 3 times, since he was doing it 3 times, it's considered like a neder, this would help. And therefore, he would make hatara for the past things that he might have done within the year, and Hoda'a le'atid. He also makes an announcement for the future that everything that he would vow is nullified, and it only works for things that he doesn't remember at the time. But if he remembers, just like in Kol Nidrei, you make hatara on the past and Hoda'a on the future, but if he remembers at the time that he makes a vow about that Kol Nidrei or about this Hoda'a, these announcements that he makes, then the vow definitely takes place because he makes it despite the announcement he made at the time of Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. Now, there's difference between the customs of Ashkenazim and Sfaradim. Ashkenazim, usually, each person takes 3 and he says the nusach, he says the hatara in front of them, and they matir, they consider the dayanim, they matir, they say to him, mutar lach, mutar lach, mutar lach, and so on. The reason we, by the way, say it 3 times is to emphasize it, lechazek et hadavar, to emphasize it. But that is Ashkenazim normally. Unless they don't have time, they could do also in a mess setting. Sfaradim do it as a whole congregation together normally, which means 10 people preferably sit, and the entire congregation stands, and they say the nusach in front of the 10 people, then the 10 people respond to them also with the nusach. That part of it, and the main part of it, is mutarim lach, mutarim lachem, mutarim lachem, mutarim lachem. Then you need to have within these 10 people, if possibly all should be learned people. If not, there should be some that are learned people within that group. It's if it's not possible to get 10, so they need to at least have 3 people. They could do that Hatarat Nedarim at night as well. It doesn't have to be in the day. It's not a din. It's not like a judgment that needs to take place only in the day. It could be also in the night. Part of the 10 or the 3 could be people that are relatives to you, to themselves. Again, it's not a din, it's not a judgment, it's not a mishpat that you can't have a relative, but over here you can have relatives, you can have sisters, brothers, and so on. You're not allowed to have husband and wife part of that setting, because husband and wife are not even considered halachically as 2 people. It's ishto kegufo, it's 1 person. Because of that, also, one is not allowed to appoint a shliach, a messenger, appoint an agent to do for him that Hatarat Nedarim. He can't go to shul, so he tells his friend, appoint you as a messenger to me. You go in front of the 3 dayanim, and they'll do the Hatarat Nedarim for me. You just give over to them my right to do the Hatarat Nedarim. That's not possible. You can't do it. You have to come yourself physically in front of them. There are those that permitted at the time that there was Corona to do it through a phone setting and so on, but definitely that's not the way it should be done when it's not such an emergency. If the only exception to that is a man and his wife. In other words, a man is allowed to be a shliach for his wife, but no others. So a wife preferably should appoint her husband before he goes to do a Hatarat Nedarim. She can go herself and be part of the people from Ezrat Nashim that doing Hatarat Nedarim. she appoints her husband. She tells him that when you go over there, you'll be my agent. That's the only scenario, again, because a man and a wife really is one, so that is possible to do, but not possible to do it for anybody else. But again, relatives could be part of the Beit Din, and they could do it to the matirim that are relatives to them. So you can do it really in a family setting. If you have 3 boys from the same family standing, they could do it for the rest of the family at Hatarat Nedarim. The way it's done, as we explained before, the congregation stands, the matirim, which are dayanim, they sit. That's the way dayanim usually do it. They sit down and go through it. Again, this is only done through such nedarim that you don't remember, but if it's a real neder that you made, you're going to have to sit down together with a rabbi, find a petach. He's going to have to ask you the questions to see if there's a way to allow such a neder. Not every neder could be allowed as well. There are nedarim that a person made as a mitzvah, so it's a maaseh tov, and so on, that you can't, it's very hard to be matir such a thing. Or if a person's made a neder not to do a certain sin, a certain bad thing, then you can't be matir such things. You have to really be knowledgeable in Hot Nedarim to be able to go through each and every detail. We're talking about the Nedarim that you do before Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which a person does as just to nullify anything that he might have said as a neder. Not everything also is a neder. There's a lot of things that people think they're neder, but they're not. For example, most opinions hold neder has to be verbally spoken, and therefore if a person wrote something or a person thought of something, that's not necessarily a neder, unless there's some exceptions, nidrei tzedakah, that could be exercised through the thought itself. Once a person thinks to give tzedakah, could be then is obligated. It's a machloket rishonim, machloket in the Rema. Anyway, when we're talking about going to do nedarim, the minhag, again, for Sfaradim is to stand everybody together and say the Hatarat Nedarim. If possible, this would say the entire version which you'll find in Sidurim of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and in the Slichot booklets, or usually it's in the back. You see a long nusach. If it's not possible, because of lack of time, a person is in a rush, or whatever it is, they can say a shorter nusach, just to say that I'm regretting, מתחרט אני את כל נדרים ושבועות, ועל כל מנהג טוב שנהגתי, ולא אמרתי שיהיה בלי נדר, which means I regret any neder, any vow that I made, or any shvuah I swear, and or if I made a certain good deed 3 times, and I didn't say bli neder, I don't want it to be as a vow. Vow is a very serious thing. So then I'm asking you, the dayanim, to be matir, to let go of that, to resolve that, and they say mutarim lachem, mutarim lachem, mutarim lachem. They are resolved, they are mutar to you. Those nedarim should be taken seriously. A person should really make sure to do them at that time in order to come to Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah as well, nedarim free. It's so important that that is the reason Chazal instituted that Kol Nidrei should start Yom Kippur. What's Kol Nidrei? It's Hatarat Nedarim. Although Kol Nidrei would only work for Nedarim that a person doesn't remember, as we explained before, at the time that he says, for instance, the Odah for the future, a person that accepted for the future, of course, that a person that remembers at the time about Kol Nidrei, and usually a person does remember, that's the Ta'ana of the Aruch HaShulchan and many, that of course a person knows that he said Kol Nidrei. So really, the Kol Nidrei doesn't work for any Nedarim he's going to say in the future, or something that he said in the past. Really, he says that the Kol Nidrei is like a tefillah tova, it's an elevated prayer more than Hatarat Nedarim. But the fact that Chazal instituted in that time, it's very important. We need to know, the Or Letzion writes, that Hatarat Nedarim is chesed. If a person needs to do Hatarat Nedarim, and you are there and he asks you to join the 3 or the 10 and to be matir the neder for him, a person should do it. He should try to do it, because it is a chesed. It's something that you would want others to do for you when you need to, and you should do it for others as well. And therefore, a person should go out of his way, spend that extra time, and do Hatarat Nedarim. Be'ezrat Hashem, everybody should have Gmar Chatima Tova.